Hey guys, welcome back. Now a little while ago I made a video asking you guys what you would like to know about Gorge River. Now this is before I actually went home, and when I went home I managed to film a few videos that will answer some of the questions, but I wasn't able to answer all of them. So in this video today I'm just going to go through most of the comments that I got from that video and do my best to answer your questions. I'm actually here in Tromsø, Arctic Norway, so a long way from Gorge River, but I can still do my best to answer your questions. Alright, so let's get straight into it. AA Ram, thank you very much for your comment. How do you deal with rubbish like plastic, human waste, hygiene? How do you keep household clean, like bedding, mattresses, etc.? Very good question. First of all, rubbish and plastic, we send all that back out by aeroplane or helicopter as a backload. So when we get food in, we send rubbish out. We burn everything that we can, so like cardboard and that sort of thing, but we don't burn plastic. We send that back out. Plastic and metal and recycling and that sort of thing, that can go out to the normal rubbish dump. Human waste goes into a septic tank, much the same as anyone else in a small town where you don't have a sewage system. As far as hygiene goes, we clean the house just like anyone would clean the house, and bedding and clothing we wash, but we wash it by hand. We don't actually wash it in a washing machine as such. RGB, how do your parents make money, dollars, in such an isolated place, especially pre-internet? And two, how is your schooling as a kid? So the internet hasn't really made a whole lot of difference as far as making money. My dad's an artist. He paints oil on canvas paintings, which are about 1.5 meters wide, and really amazing. He also carves jade. So this carving that I've got, you'll see it in all my videos. I actually made this myself out of an offcut from one of my dad's carvings. And he makes some incredible jade carvings. How does he sell them? Most of it is actually sold at the kitchen table, believe it or not. We kind of have New Zealand's most isolated art gallery, and people will come in either walking or flying just specifically to buy a piece of work from Dad. So it's quite special. Now my schooling was a little bit different to most people's schooling. I did homeschooling for primary school. I did correspondence school for high school. Now that's kind of like a school by mail system that we have in New Zealand. And I actually have a teacher in Wellington who sends me the lesson. I do the lesson, send it back to Wellington, teacher marks it, send it back to me. So it's a very slow process, as you can imagine. For my last year of school, year 13, I actually wanted to go to a real school. And it was a part of my transition from living in the wilderness to living in a city. And I went to school in Wanaka at Mount Aspiring College for 1 year. Absolutely loved it, and it was the start of me going into the world and exploring. Noreen O'Shea, do you have cows to provide milk? No, we don't. All of our milk comes from milk powder, which unfortunately we can't produce at Gorge River. We live on conservation land, so we're not allowed to have cows or anything like that. White Dove asks, what is the biggest challenge with the lifestyle you had growing up, and what are the challenges now? Probably the biggest challenge growing up was isolation, and the fact that my sister Robin and I, we didn't have anyone else to play with, any other kids, and that was probably the hardest thing about growing up there. We went for 7 weeks as a family one time without seeing a single other person. So 7 weeks is quite a long time. My sister and I, we got on well, but we still had our arguments and that sort of thing. But obviously living in a place like that, we had to get over it and move on, which we always did. And question continues, what are the things you rely on most? And what are the challenges now? Well, I don't live there anymore. I live somewhere else in the world. So Mum and Dad's biggest challenge is the fact that they're at home at Gorge River without their kids. And question goes on, what are the things you rely on most that have to be bought in? And over winter, what, if any, vegetables can grow here? Anything that can't grow needs to be flown in. So this is things like oil, like I said, milk, eggs, sugar, sultanas, peanuts, fruit. We can't really grow fruit at Gorge River. Flour, anything like that. that all gets flown into Gorge River. So we try and use as little as possible of that, and we try and eat mostly fish and vegetables from the garden. All of our vegetables come from Gorge River, not a problem there. And in winter, things don't grow, but they don't die. So as long as the silver beet or whatever has grown over summer, then it will kind of stay the same size through winter, and you can just pick it slowly. Carrots last really well if you leave them in the ground, so they grow over summer again, and then in winter you just keep pulling them out of the ground. And you can eat carrots and pumpkins and silver beet and lots of green vegetables like watercress and stuff right through winter, no problem.
It's nearly halfway through September now, and we're still on the last of the pumpkins that we grew last autumn.
Does the family use any native plants for medicine? Yes, we do use a few. The one that springs to mind the most is Koromiko. It's good for your stomach if you've got stomach sickness, which we don't really get at Gorge River. Always as kids we'd get sick when we came out to town because we were suddenly exposed to all the bugs. When I was living at Gorge River, I never ever got sick, and same for Robin. You're so healthy there, and there isn't so many bugs as well. Trinans. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing these names correctly. I'm terrible at pronouncing names. I'll do my best. What are the things you love the most about Gorge River? I feel very lucky to have grown up there, is one. But now I like to go home, and I like to take friends that I met from other countries and other places. I love to take people home and show them my life at Gorge River. So teach them how to catch a fish, teach them how to butcher up a deer or dig a vegetable garden or something like that. And that's really rewarding for me. The other is that I can go home and spend some time with mum and dad. Gorge River is such a healthy place. I'm always so active. If I have been away in the rest of the world not being so healthy, then I can go back to Gorge River, and after a month there I will feel really, really good inside, which is great. Pause and Hal. I would like to know what kinds and amount of food you keep in storage. Now, we keep probably about 6 months of food in storage. That's just approximately. It kind of goes up and down. If we have some friends coming, or myself or Robin flying in and out from home, sometimes we'll kind of stock up on food when we've got the aeroplane flights going, and then mum and dad might go for 2 months or longer without having to get an aeroplane flight. If the rest of the world evaporated, they would probably have enough food at Gorge River to last them for a year if you kind of ration the outside food, and then that would give an amount of time for them to get used to using just the food that they can get from the local environment. Carol Brazil, how will your parents adapt to aging at Gorge River? Great question. Thank you, Carol. There's a lot of jobs around home that are quite physical, and so as mum and dad age, they've got to kind of do less and less of those jobs. Myself and Robin can help get firewood and do some heavy jobs when we're there, but we're not there a lot. They used to walk in and out a lot, and as a family, that's how we always used to get out from Gorge River. We don't do that so much anymore, and mum and dad generally fly. And as they age, then they can always fly. So all they have to do is be able to walk out in front of the house, and the helicopter can land and then take them in and out. If they have to go to a doctor or hospital or something, they can call up on the internet and get a helicopter in any time, as long as the weather is permitting of that. So I can see that they will be able to live there for a lot longer yet. We will just see how that goes. And next question, Stardust asks, tell us some adventurous story that happened with your sister in your early age. So the most adventurous thing we ever did was walk from Gorge River out to the road as kids. This was always an amazing adventure for us, and probably a lot of hard work for mum and dad. So we had to walk from when we were 3.5 because we were too big to be carried. And for a 3.5-year-old, that walk took 5 days. So we would walk half a day, camp in a tent, walk a full day, stay in a house, walk a short day, stay in a hut, and then another short day to a hut, and then out to the road. So it was quite an adventure for us kids, and here's some pictures of that. When we got out, usually we were absolutely exhausted, but I think it's definitely made me who I am, just having that incredible adventure getting from our home out to the road. And then when we got to the road, we would go, and I'd travelled a lot in New Zealand, and I'd been to Australia 7 times by the age of 17 to see family over there. So we definitely got to see a lot of New Zealand and Australia as well. It wasn't just Gorge River. We weren't stuck in Gorge River all of our life. We would come out from home about twice every year. How do you succeed travelling so much? How do you manage money to be a successful traveller? I'm going to make a separate video on how I travel and my money, so wait for that. Have you ever seen some strange happenings in the sky, like UFO? No, have not. Have seen the Southern Lights though from Gorge River, and that was pretty cool. How do you see this world? How do you perceive it after so much time spent in the heart of nature? Because a lot of people these days are depressed because of this non-social, more virtual life and pressure of some material values. Example, money. Great question. I see the world very differently to most people, simply because I've kind of been removed from the world by living at Gorge River, and then also a lot of the other things I've done haven't really been in the normal world. I've kind of been quite removed. So I see life as being an amazing opportunity, and for me, I want to do as many things as possible in my life. I don't understand why most people I should say, will do one job that they don't like for the majority of their life. For me, I want to do everything that I would like to do, that I find enjoyable to do, and if I don't like something anymore, I'm going to move on to the next thing. I'm not scared of the unknown. I think the world as it is, there's too many people on Earth to live sustainably. At the moment, with the increased awareness of global warming, climate change and that sort of thing, I can see there's some people changing, but most people are not changing in this world. And I travel a lot, which I know isn't great for the environment, but I do see travel as being the best form of education, and I've learnt so much about the world that I wouldn't have learned if I just stayed in one place. And I think I've learnt enough about the world to see that it's not going to change fast enough. So I, in my mind, would more prepare for what is going to happen when the world changes. And yeah, we could talk all day about that. Thank you very much, Stardust, for your questions. Nicole Baltazar, what are the things that you find difficult about living in Gorge River? Kind of covered a couple of these already. Isolation was probably the hardest. When I was growing up there, we didn't have internet. Mum and Dad got that when I left so that they could keep in contact with me. But in general, most things were not difficult for us. It's just normal. That's how my sister and I grew up. We didn't know a whole lot different. We kind of knew a little bit different, but we enjoyed the life that we had there. And things like having to catch your fish and having to grow a vegetable garden, that's just normal. Most other people have to go and earn money so that they can buy their fish and buy their vegetables. We just caught some fish and grew some vegetables. So it's very similar if you look at it that way. Rather than make money to buy something, we just make that thing. Yeah, kind of simple in some ways. And you live a very simple lifestyle, and sometimes that can be not so difficult. It was quite interesting because before I reached the age of 18, we were kind of like the poor kids in the wilderness. How are they going to cope with the world? How are they going to learn all this sort of thing? Mum and Dad had quite a lot of pressure from other people. Like, why are you bringing your kids up like this? They don't have a TV, they don't have a computer, this is terrible. And it was really funny, when I reached about the age of 18, suddenly it completely changed and everyone admired our lifestyle. Suddenly everyone was like, oh, you're so lucky to grow up in the middle of nowhere. You're so lucky to grow up without TV and cell phones and all these things. And it was incredible how it just changed so quickly. And yes, I feel very lucky to have grown up without TV, cell phone, computer. you can learn that so fast. It takes 1 or 2 years to learn that kind of lifestyle. It takes a lifetime to learn the lifestyle of living in the wilderness. And so now I feel very lucky because I can live in the wilderness in the most remote wild places on earth, like Gorge River or Antarctica or somewhere. But now I can also live in the world's craziest cities. I've lived and worked in Hong Kong, for example, which is completely different to Gorge River, New Zealand. So yeah, I feel very lucky. Justine Edwards, I'd like to know, has your home ever flooded, as it looks quite low lying and is right near the sea and river mouth? Answer is no. At the moment we're having some problems with our airstrip because the erosion is kind of cutting the airstrip in half, and there is some erosion in front of our house which is slowly getting closer from the ocean, that is, but we're still a long way from the ocean, and the river actually runs kind of to the north of the house, and it's never ever risen enough. There is just a little bit of a hill which has got our house on top, and that keeps the water away. So we're really lucky in that regard because a lot of places on the west coast do flood. If we were to have a tsunami, we have a track that goes straight to the hill behind because we would be really, really badly affected by a tsunami. We are lucky that we do have a hill. It probably takes us 2 minutes to run to the bottom of the hill and get up a little bit. If there's an earthquake happening at the same time, then we're going to be in trouble. Rocky Golden Doodle, how do you afford to travel? What do you do for a living? And we'll talk more about this in another video. But basically, I don't have a lot of money, but what money I have, I use for traveling. And when I travel, I don't spend very much. So I don't need much money to travel for 6 months or a year. I work in Antarctica and other wild, amazing places. I'm currently working in Tromsø, Norway, up in the Arctic as a dog sledding guide. And when I work, I try and earn as much money as I can, so with a good wage, but in an environment where I don't have expenses. So preferably places where I've got living and food paid for. Antarctica is perfect for this. That way when I finish work, I have got all the money that I earned minus tax in my pocket to go traveling with. I find if you do a normal job in a normal place, half at least of your money will go towards food and accommodation, and so I try and limit that. That way I actually kind of earn a little bit more money because I'm not spending it, if that makes sense. Lachlan Warren, mate, I would love to see how Beansprout carves his greenstone pieces. So here's a couple of videos of Dad greenstone carving, and I will try and do a full video on this next time I go home.
Next thing I'll be drilling a hole there and then carving that out, and that'll be a chime.
Hello me, daily routine. We love to see your farm garden, cooking, catch fish and everything. Yes, I have some videos coming up of shooting deer and catching possums, and there's already one on my channel of catching blue cod fish out at sea as well, so check that out. Hello. Chris Keen, I'd be keen to know more about the river itself. What's up there? Any interesting history? Where does it begin? Do you guys go up there often into the mountains? Don't go up there often. Dad did when he was young and just living at Gorge River by himself. He would go up into the mountains and explore. I've only been up the river, the full length of the river once. I walked, rather than walking along the coast to get to my home, I walked inland and then down the river, which was quite cool. And any interesting history? Yes. So back in the late 1960s, there was actually some bulldozers came all the way down the coastline to Gorge River, and they built the airstrip and the start of our house, and they went up into the mountains looking for gold. They didn't find much gold and eventually abandoned the project. Early 70s, there was 2 more bulldozers came down the coast. They came past Gorge River, built the house a bit bigger, made the airstrip better, and then they continued all the way down to Big Bay and into the Red Hills. They were off to mine asbestos, and that was just before asbestos became very unpopular. So again, they gave up on that idea and drove the bulldozers back out. Ayaroxis, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Thank you very much for your comments, by the way. Can you ask your parents on how did they meet, their love story? So they actually met in Queenstown, not at Gorge River, and Mum was hiking through up the coastline with a friend of hers. They were going a particularly difficult route, so Dad figured he should probably go along and show them the way because he knew the way, and be their guide and that sort of thing. And then Mum came back a couple of years later, and then shortly after I came along, and then they've lived there ever since. Millie Lawrence, love your channel. I have a couple of questions. Do you use social media? If so, why or why not? Yes, I use social media a lot. It's very important for me to be able to keep in contact with people that I meet around the world. Most of my friends are not in New Zealand. They're spread out across the globe. And so social media is great for that. I also obviously do YouTube and Instagram as well, so people can follow me. I want to be able to show my life to you guys, and that way you can kind of live a little through me as well, and hopefully get a little bit out of that and learn a little bit about the world as well. Question 2, how do you afford to go on all of your trips? Kind of covered that a little bit in this video. Basically, I just travel as cheap as possible, and that way my money goes the furthest, because you can travel a lot further than most people realize with a very small amount of money in this world. Where do you get the Wi-Fi to upload your videos and reply to comments? Well, most places in the world there's Wi-Fi. The one and only place I really struggle with this is Antarctica, because we didn't have any Wi-Fi down there. So I would make the videos and then send them out on a USB stick back to New Zealand, and a couple of friends would upload them for me. I couldn't reply to any comments or anything through that for 5 months that I was there. But when I'm not down there, then it's easy. I'm here in Tromsø at the moment. I have plenty of Wi-Fi in my room and everywhere around, so it's not so difficult. Fraser Baker asks, do you get whitebait at Gorge River? Yes, we do get whitebait, and for those who don't know, whitebait is a very small juvenile fish that comes up the rivers in New Zealand, and it's a delicacy. It tastes really good. And people will go out in the season and catch it. So yes, we do get some, but not much, not enough to be commercial. We get enough to sometimes eat ourselves, and then the rest of the time we don't even get that much. Alright, so that's all for today. Hopefully I answered a lot of your questions, and if you do have any more questions, please just ask them. Comment below this video, and I'll do my best to answer them, and if we have enough, I'll do another video like this one as well. So that's all for today. Thank you very much for watching, and good night, good day, and good morning wherever you might be in the world.
You were the shadow to my